From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
I'm Mr. Patrick. I'm the director of something called the Veterans History Project. Okay, this is your quiz for the day. Who can tell me what a veteran is? You had your hand up first. The person that helps animals. You know, a lot of people sometimes say that. That's a veterinarian. Okay, I'm going to try you, young man. A person who used to be in a war. Pretty good. A person that you should remember. Thank you. And you? Okay, that's right. That's another definition for a veteran that's longhand. And you? Somebody in the Army, yes. What he said. There's a whole collection of what you just said that's kind of right. A veteran, in terms of what we're talking about today, though, is somebody that has served in the military. In any of the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. All those people who've served in the military are called veterans once they come out of the service. Who in here knows a veteran? Who do you know? You're a veteran? No. I did. Your father, what service was he in? Do you know what service he was in? Army, Navy, Marine Corps? He's Marines. That's why you got a good haircut, right? Okay. Yes, you. Your grandfather was. You know what service he was in? Marines. My gosh, got a bunch of Marines today. Yes, sir. Your cousin. You know what service he was in? In the Navy? Has she been recently in the Navy? Okay. And you, sir? One of your uncles was in the service? You don't know what service it was? Yes, ma'am. She's in the Navy? Your uncle? You know what service he was in? The Army? I'm an Army veteran, so he's probably a pretty good guy, right? Yes, sir. Your father? He went overseas? Did not go overseas, but he was in the military. Whoever is in the military, no matter what they do, no matter who they serve, they're all veterans and they should be remembered. Did someone else have their hand up over here? Yes, sir. Your friend's father was with the Marines? So the fact that a lot of you folks know veterans, have some veterans in your family, friends of your friends have people in the veterans, that says there's probably a lot of veterans around. And really there are. Believe it or not, there are 20 million veterans who are in this country today. In this room alone, Mr. Cole, where did Mr. Cole go? He is a veteran in the Army many years ago. I was a veteran. There's veterans everywhere. I bet there's veterans in your school. I bet there's veterans that live down the street from you. I bet there's veterans you go to church with. They're everywhere. And each and every one of them have what we call an important story to tell. It's a story of serving their country. No matter where they go, no matter what they do is important. Why do you think veterans are important? Anybody have an idea? Yes. Exactly. They are willing to fight, in some cases lay down their lives for each and every one of us so that we can enjoy what we have today in this country. And that's happened from day one, from when this country started, all the way up to today, that there are men and women that have been willing to do this. And that's why we think those stories are important. So we here at the Library of Congress, actually, the United States Congress thought that this would be a good idea, and they created something called the Veterans History Project. And this is a project where we encourage people to sit down with a veteran in their life, their neighbor, their uncle, their mother, their grandmother, their teacher, whoever, and listen to their story. And generally this is done, this is something that we ask high school students and above to do for us. And we've had people all over the country doing this, students all over the country. We've had people like in the Red Cross, we've had people in veterans organizations, we've had people in the Department of Veterans Affairs, just all kinds of people recording these stories. But you can kind of be a part of it too. And if you want to, you can go online and hear some of these stories on our website. But I would also encourage you to talk about, we talked about those veterans you know and maybe that you don't know, to sit down and talk to them. Ask them, what's it like being in the Army? What did you do in the Army? Where did you go? What was important for you? What were some of the funny things that happened to you? Believe it or not, there are funny things that happen to you when you're in the military. I have 28 years worth of them. But also ask them, what does it mean for them to say, I'm a veteran? And when they think back on their service to their country, how they look at that and the importance they put on that. And whether they would do it all over again. And 9 times out of 10, they would say they would. There's another veteran sitting back there. That young man's a veteran. I'm a veteran. Mr. Cole's a veteran who was just here. So we're everywhere. So that's the story I have for you today. You're going to be hearing some other stories from a very important veteran that I think Ms. Jaffe is going to introduce at this time.
Brian Thacker is a Vietnam vet and a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, and you're going to learn all about that. And yesterday, which was Memorial Day, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, he participated in a special ceremony in which the U.S. Postal Service launched 3 stamps, and on those stamps, it features the Congressional Medal of Honor. Very unique opportunity. And Brian was one of 10 veterans who was at that service, and I believe who spoke, at least to the media, because I saw it, thanks to Bob Patrick. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Thacker. He will be doing 2 things. He's going to talk a bit about a new book about Choose Courage, which is a book about the Congressional Medal of Honor winners and citizen honor winners. And then he's going to talk a bit about himself. And feel free to do that in whichever order pleases you. Okay? And then after he speaks, we will have opportunity for you to ask him questions. And this is what I'm going to do when that happens. I'm going to sit over there, but when the question and answer period starts, he will pick the person that starts the questions, and he will call on them. I will give the first person the microphone, and then you'll look to see who's been called on next, and then you'll give that person the microphone. So because this is videotaped, we want to be sure that everyone gets their question on the mic, okay? All right, thank you.
Can we start the lesson with a fine point for us? But we think of ourselves as recipients, not winners. We entered no contest. It's a little thing, but it's one that I've been given the opportunity to speak to coming out of the chute. Got to get my dig in. This is not a me award. This is an us award. Yesterday, when I was down at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and the questions were always, what does this day mean to you? What are you thinking about? And the short answer is the same thing I think about every day. On panel 4 West, there's a place on that panel that remembers March 31st, 1971. And it was an average day in Vietnam. There's 9 names on that wall, in that section, and a little down about 85 to 95 rose levels. But for the efforts of 5 other people, mine would be the 10th. And every day, I thank them for the opportunity for a second chance. I hope that when I walk out of here today, you will think that I did them proud. This award is over since Civil War. Just about 3,500 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guard, one woman, have received the honor out of over 40 million that have ever served. Same time frame. I had nothing to do with nominating myself for this thing. None of us did. It was our peers that when all the dust had settled, and there's usually a commander that says, okay, awards, what do you think? Who made a difference? And somebody nominated us, with me to carry the responsibility of receiving the award and presenting it in their behalf to whoever I talk to. And that's the way it is with all of them today, all of the living recipients. It wasn't always that way. Back in the Civil War, you could promote yourself, and many did. And that era's past. This book, Choosing Courage, is not just about this award. It's about some civilians that have done the same thing. That would be you. There's at least 2 stories in there that are from children. Maybe 3 if I remember right. Doolittle's daughter wrote one, but I knew her as an adult, not when she was in 6th grade. Jency's story is a tough one. It's a reality in every school that all of the teachers train for. My generation did not. It's one of the differences between the good old bad days in the 1950s. And yeah, when I say that, I'm a product of a separate and unequal school system. It hadn't changed over yet. Having a weapon in school was the last thing we thought of. I certainly knew how to use them. I'd been taught, don't point that thing at me, boy. And that's the way my uncles addressed me when I needed to improve my behavior and conduct. But it was very clear from 1st grade on that you shoot at targets. If you're hunting, you shoot at the animal, but you never point the weapon at a person. And I got that training early on. We didn't have weapons in the schools. We had these, but that was it. The challenge that Jancy faced was one that, here we are, we have to deal with it. If you go down to Union Station and you watch the Metro, the Amtrak videos, there's a video there that tells you what to do. You only have 3 choices. 2 of them are run away, and they come first. The third one is the soldier's solution, and the third solution is attack. Only if you have to. Because at that point, you've already made the decision that the shooter, that you're next. You're trapped. And that's an ugly reality that we all face in public spaces and in school. Let me start with Jancy's story. If any of you have questions, break it up. Am I going to read the whole thing? It's a short one. I need to read the first paragraph, and then I'll probably skip over. I'll probably read about the young man that she confronted. I have not made a phone call to the foundation in years about what's happened next. But when you hear the date of March 14th, 2006, Jancy Fagan was a phys ed teacher setting up for volleyball for first period. I think you all have been there. Some of you might have been there to help. She was at the Edward Pine Middle School in Reno, Nevada, and she was one of the more popular members of the faculty. She had enthusiasm, but she also had high expectations. And she was involved with her kids. She ran the laps with the kids. She encouraged those that were having trouble to keep up. She ran with you to try to help you along. Because running is a challenge. I don't like to do it. But it's one of those things that you have to do to develop your lungs, to develop your body. The bad news is that the lungs mature next to last. The last to mature is this thing up here. But if you don't exercise both before you get there, you don't come out as strong. Anyway, James, I don't know if that's his real name or it's to protect him, was one of the loners at Edward Pine. School was a struggle. He had a dark feeling that no one, not his schoolmates, his parents, cared about him. He was angry, confused. It had come to a boil when he watched a video of Columbine. He came to school that morning with a .38 caliber pistol in his backpack. Went to the boys' room and loaded it and came out ready to shoot before first period. One of his friends, he did have at least one. He didn't recognize it though. Passed him and asked him to take the gun away, put the gun away, and then James told him to run for his life, and then he opened fire. Jancy recognized the sounds. There were 3 rounds, and she sprinted to the sound, even though she didn't have to. The first rule when you hear those sounds is to move away. The code red had been sounded. That was their emergency signal. Jancy huddled as many students as she could into the offices along the way to the gym. One of her students said, yeah, we kind of expected Jancy to come to the rescue. That's the kind of teacher that she was. And then she saw James. And she walked up to him and started talking to him. Not in a loud, yelling voice at all. You talk in a soft voice. the book says she began talking to him in a soft voice. She kept telling him that he was not a killer and that he would be all right. Worried that somebody else had come into the cafeteria, he'd turn and shoot. So she stood in front of him to make sure that if he was going to pull the trigger, she was going to take the first round. She wasn't angry with James at all. She felt sympathy and was determined to keep him from hurting anybody else. She remembered her own difficulties growing up. One of 6 kids, brought up by a single mother in a small town in Alabama. And she felt disadvantaged in comparison to normal families. But her mom, who worked, wouldn't tolerate self-pity. She was taught Mom didn't give up. She pushed us harder. She taught us to never quit. And that's one of the things that made her stick with James rather than run. She asked him to put down the gun. Please put it on the floor. As long as you've got that thing, we're in an unstable situation. As soon as he did put it down, she hugged him and kept talking to him. She said, "We're not going anywhere. I'm going to be with you. I'll see you through this. You have at least one teacher on your side." Yep, the part that I'm unhappy about, because I don't know the rest of the story on this side, is James was, 2 students were treated. He did wound 2 students. He was tried as a minor, arrested, tried, convicted of 2 counts of battery with a deadly weapon, and I'm sure he went for treatment. What I don't know is what's happened to him since. And that bothers me. When she was asked why she had put herself in harm's way, Jency talked about her mother. She taught us to think that if you see something happening that isn't right, you do something. You don't look for someone else to handle it. She said, "I'm a teacher, a mom, a human being. These are our children. There's no way I'm going to call a parent after something has happened and tell them that I didn't do everything I could to protect their child." A couple years later, in 2008, March 25th, that's a significant day for us. It's the Medal of Honor's birthday. We celebrate it. We recognize Jency. I think she was one of our first recipients of our Citizens Above Self recognition. That was a dream come true. We think as recipients that we need to recognize people in civilian life when they step up to the plate. And it's a small token of our appreciation to Jency Fagan. What she did when facing harm was every bit as courageous as what a soldier faces. And that is an abbreviated version of what's in print here. I've skipped some of the words, inserted some of my own comments along the way. But it's a short story. Unfortunately, one that almost every school has to be aware of. Now I think comes the hard part. I'm supposed to talk about me. I never know what to say on that, and we'll open it up for questions next. We were soldiers. We were in Vietnam. We were on a isolated small fire base. The only way we could get to it was by helicopter, because surrounded with North Vietnamese regulars. Like I said, on March 31st, the North Vietnamese decided they wanted the fire base. And we didn't want to give it up. I lost 3 men very quickly because they were awake, they were on duty. 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, you're supposed to be asleep, unless you're a soldier in a combat zone. And then you either have a third or a half of your people awake, ready to fight all the time. That was a rotating duty. My turn would have been the day before or the day after. We just took turns being up, taking watch at all hours of the day and night. We were outnumbered, outgunned. The only advantage that we had is that we were on top of the hill shooting down, and they had to shoot up at us. But eventually, by the end of the day, we were not going to be able to hold that position for that next night and wait for reinforcements. In order to get people away, I asked for artillery fire on that position so that they could form up in what turned out to be a small platoon, move down a trail to a place where they could be extracted safely. I was waiting for that fire to get to me, and it was taking much too long for me. Seconds, if you were down at the firing battery. And I wanted to make darn sure that when I left the fire base, and there was one South Vietnamese soldier standing right beside me. He had the machine gun. They weren't messing with him. They could listen to us on the radio. They knew that I was going to shoot the location. It was just a matter of, do we want to rush across that fire base and try to get to them, or do we want to hold back and let them go? I don't know what was going through the enemy commander's mind. What I was looking to do at that point in time was buy time, so that what was left of a friendly unit could separate. Hopefully there wasn't an ambush waiting for them, and they could get to a place farther away from the fire base where helicopters could land and extract them. I tried to catch up, did not. Ended up deciding that it was better to stay still and hide where I wasn't supposed to be and hope that they wouldn't look for me. And that was a successful strategy the first night. The next day, I was trying to move to a safer location, and we got bombed. And when the dust settled, I was surrounded by a North Vietnamese machine gun position. And I had to wait in a bamboo thicket that had been prepared by some animal, probably a tiger, when I think back on it. And I just had to wait until I thought it was safe to go back up to the fire base, which had been retaken by the South Vietnamese. There was a battle going on. You'd hear it all day. Whenever helicopters came in to resupply the fire base, they flew right over my position. The machine gun, the North Vietnamese machine gun emplacement opened up on them, and they either had to go up, go around, maneuver to land at the fire base. We got strafed every day. We knew that a resupply was coming because we got strafed, followed by the supply helicopters, and the North Vietnamese just stayed in their little holes and waited for the strafe to end and came up and were ready to shoot at the next round of helicopters. It was a pretty simple game. And eventually I decided I had to crawl back up the mountain and was successful. I'm here. I was thirsty. I was tired. I was hungry, mostly thirsty. And I was evacuated, and 2.5 years later, got the phone call that you're going to be decorated. And that sort of in a nutshell is my story. Whatever I could pull up today and remember. I don't know to this day what I did that was heroic. I had a job to do. I was the team leader. They were my men. I had tools at my disposal. I used every one of them to the extent I could. But I think that's what I was expected to do. I have to trust my colleagues that whatever they saw, trust their judgment that what we were doing, and because you don't give an order. An order that you give that nobody follows is useless. People have to accept the guidance and the instruction. But they did put me in, and it survived all the reviews, and 2.5 years later I was decorated. Hopefully, well, I don't know. We'll know from your questions. Because that's what's going to come next after about 1 or 2 lines, so I'll give you a break, give you a chance. I joined the Medal of Honor Society. 1973, there was almost 400 living recipients. I got to meet guys from World War I, II, the interim, Korea. All of the people in this book I've known. It's kind of neat, it's personal, but it's all after Vietnam. That the book was published is a dream come true. That we can recognize people like Jancy Fagan is a dream come true. It's something we've wanted to do, we've worked hard to do. With the help of a lot of other people, we can make it happen. And we hope that you pay attention. A lot of people trying to get you to pay attention. I know that. And this is one way. We hope we get a sound bite in. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you get to practice using the microphone. Say your name.
My name is Cassandra, and the first thing that you said was you consider us as the recipients. Why?
This happens to me. It's a good question. I didn't volunteer for this award. I didn't put in an application. As one of my colleagues, and you read about him in this book, and it's Ron Rosser, he says, what it means to me is that the other people that were with you at a difficult time. And when you see his video, when he says that, his voice starts to quiver and break because the emotions are bubbling up. They thought you were worthy of it. I'm not sure that I am. And that's not a winner. A winner is something that you work hard to try to get. And I didn't work to get this. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Sort of?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to have follow-up questions, but I'm sure some of your other colleagues would like to ask a question. Yes, sir. You take the mic. You're going to have
Why did you want to become in the Army?
in the Army or an officer? Okay. In those days, there was a law that said you get drafted. Every able-bodied male was going to be drafted, whether you liked it or not. Most people don't like that at all. I was in college. I was flunking out of college. In fact, I did. 50 years ago, I'd flunked out of college. And when I went back to school, ROTC was available. If you were in ROTC, you were deferred from the draft, but you went in as a commissioned officer. And an officer is responsible for everything that his unit does and doesn't do. I wanted to find out if I could do that. I wanted to find out if I could get men to do something that they didn't want to do in a hostile environment. Didn't know if I'd like it, didn't know if I would thrive on that, but wanted to know if I could do it. And those were my reasons for going ROTC. Yes, ma'am. Now, you need the practice of speaking into the microphone. I'm sorry. Your colleagues have to pass it to you.
My name Dakaya. My name Dakaya. When you served in the Army, did it make you proud? Did you ever feel proud?
I'm very proud of my service. I'm proud of the people I was with. They were from all over the country. And they were good soldiers. And they wanted to come home, and they were willing to work together to come home rather than by themselves. It's one of those things that you don't want people to have to go in the Army. You don't want war. But if you have to, it seems like almost every generation in our country has had to. It's kind of like learning what to do when there's a weapon in school. It's not what you want, it's not what you like, but it's an ugly reality of what you have to live with. And I'm perfectly willing to come back to you, but I want to see somebody else get their questions in too. Follow-up question.
Did you have any family members when you was in the Army? Well, like, was you married back then?
Okay. No, I was not married. My father is an Air Force officer, and I grew up in the Air Force. And let him have it first.
My name is Isaiah. And what is it like to be in the Army?
When you're in the Army, you go where the Army wants you to go, first of all. I got very used to living out of a duffel bag. Everything I owned and needed was in a small suitcase. You only need 3 pairs of underwear, one that you got on, one that's clean, and one that's in the laundry. You quickly learn it's nice to have a fourth, just in case the laundry doesn't work. Same with your uniform. 2 pairs of boots. One that you've got on, one that's resting, and you switch off every day. The first thing you do is you brush your teeth. Then you wash the rest of your body, depending on how much water you have. Of course, you're training to do the one thing that we don't want to do as humans, and that's hurt somebody else. It goes against every grain in your body, but that's what you're training to do.
Brian, I have a question for you. In reading this book, one of the points I got out of it was the universality of certain characteristics of both outstanding military soldiers who were recipients of the medal and citizens who received the honor medal from the society. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about some of these important characteristics about courage that are applicable to everyone, including our students from Elliott Hine School.
I'll try. The enemy is selfishness. The enemy is me, I, and thinking that the world revolves around moi. And accepting the reality that it doesn't. That there's something bigger than you, more important than you, and that you can get along a whole lot better if you think that way. One of the most fundamental instincts that we all have is self-preservation. And I want me to be saved first as opposed to me being saved last. If you make me saved first, you're going to have regrets for the rest of your life. Even though it may be more difficult in the short run to say, save me last, if you are saved, you don't wonder, could I have done more? What about if I'd only done this, then maybe 1 or 2 more would have made it? I still think that about the men I lost. Is there anything that we could have done differently? And at the end of the day is no, we were going to have 2 or 3 people on duty that morning that were going to be fully armed, loaded, letting the rest of us catch a few Z's, a few more Z's. And that when the attack came, they were the ones that were going to be on the line. And I lost them very early. I can't change that. The others, yeah, we could have tried to bug out early, and none of us would be here to talk about it. In all of the stories in there, it's an individual who is putting other people ahead of themselves, and it makes a difference. Whether it be Jancy or Dr. Cox from the Doctors Without Borders. There are other individuals that eventually their stories will get into print and will be added to that. I'm thinking of one detective up in Philadelphia that got a medal from the 8-year-old that he saved in the river that day. That award means more to him than ours. And that's the difference that he made on that day. You had another question.
What is the I forgot.
It'll come back to you. That was a dirty trick to play on you. Yes, sir.
So my question is, what was it like, what was your experience like coming out of the military? And the opportunity to tackle that?
My whole experience, even in Vietnam, was, when I reflect on it, not normal. But when I came home to a military base where everybody there had already returned home. So startled response was everyone knew what it was. We all laughed about it. And it's okay. We've all done that. We still are jumpy. Anything else going on, and they talk to you about it. And instead of being different, I was with people who were the same. And they understood. I was in a state that was pro-military. State of Hawaii, not one that you would expect would be pro-military, but the state is very pro-military. As a people, they're very pleased and proud to be Americans. And they understand that that Navy base at Pearl Harbor has a lot to do with that. And they're very proud of, now it's their grandfather who served in the 442 or the 100th in the Japanese regiments that fought in Europe. They fought for their citizenship, and they're very proud of it. So I was in a friendly, understanding environment. And by the time I got to graduate school in '73, my own generation was getting over that, and we were trying to get back together again. Eventually, we'll heal. That's work in progress. Yes, ma'am. You remembered.
What is the ITC? NCC? ITC? One of them.
ITC? ROTC? Okay.
ROTC.
It's Reserve Officers Training Corps. It's a military school command structure that helps college students become officers. In many colleges, it's a minor in military science. You'll find it in the Department of Social Studies. You're done.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask a similar question. DCPS has ROTC for high school students, and our building actually shares a building with the ROTC headquarters. They're in the same building as our middle school. And so I know our kids see it a lot, and they're not sure what exactly the ROTC wing is about. So I was just wondering if you had any advice for them, or any sort of decision-making advice when they get into high school and they have the opportunity to join ROTC?
Well, when I was in 6th grade, I didn't know what I wanted to do. It wasn't until 8th grade that I even realized that I wanted to fly. Still do. I'm too blind, but in the back, one of the things that's driven a lot of my decision making was, how do I become a pilot? Junior ROTC in high school is an interesting program. It's not for everybody. It's one that you need to look at, but it's a program that gives you a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself. They do have some discipline in it. Like Jancy Fagan, the cadre tend to have high expectations of the students that do it. So some students in high school need that for structure, for help. Others don't and would chafe at the regimentation. You have to first look in and learn to know yourself. What do I need? And then, will this help me get to where I want to get? I have to admit, in 6th grade, I wasn't thinking that way. That would have been a stretch. But by 8th grade, I had some skill in the STEM side of house, so I kind of pointed that way as preparation for being a pilot. Somebody waving their hand with another question? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Asha, and I wonder, who was your inspiration when you went to the Army?
When I was young, my parents, my dad in particular, was my mentor, was who inspired me. As I've gotten older and older and older, I look at a couple of middle school teachers, junior high teachers, who had high expectations for their students, were strict about your behavior in class. Miss Goff in 8th grade was the first one to give me leadership responsibility on the fire patrol and later on the safety patrol. Somebody has to tell you that along the way and identify it and point it out to your parents that this one has potential in the following area. I can see it already. Miss Hall in Montgomery, Alabama, 9th grade Latin teacher, taught us more English in that Latin class and taught us more about English in that Latin class than we had had in our English teacher. But she was an experienced teacher and could do that. It was not fair to ask a first-year teacher who was an art major to teach 9th graders English. But Miss Hall had no problem teaching English, Latin, any of the courses. I think she could have taught any class in that middle school at the 9th grade level. She was that good.
Brian, you have a question?
Yes, sir.
My name is Kendrick, and my question is that what was your most favorite thing when you was in the Army?
He's asked, what's the most favorite thing when I was in the Army? Well, it was usually Saturday night. But we weren't on duty then. When I was on duty and doing my job, I really liked to analyze things. I like to look at the terrain and ask the question, if I were the enemy, where would I be? And try to figure that out. And if you can do that, then you can defend yourself better. I like to make organizations work. And later on, that became favorite. But in the beginning, it was the down in the weeds, doing the math, doing the calculations, thinking about what the enemy was trying to do to us. Yes, sir.
My name Isaiah, and what was the most important thing what was the most important thing what you had to learn to do in the army?
Ask for help. The question was, what was the most important thing that I had to learn to do in the Army? Well, you walk in as this brand new second lieutenant, and every sergeant in the unit has been there and knows more about their job than you do. And your job isn't to tell them how to do their job. As a lieutenant, you have to learn, can they do their job? Do they do it well? Can they do their job without messing somebody else up? 'Cause it doesn't do any good to do your job if you've made somebody else's life more difficult. You had to learn to ask them for help. Had to learn to ask the question, Sarge, Chief, is this a sergeant problem or is this an officer problem? And inevitably the sergeant said, well, let me take a look at it first, and if I can't handle it, it's an officer problem. And, you know, only 1 or 2 times did I ever get a problem. But learning that, and learning how to make that work for you, that was all after school. That was on-the-job training. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I know you guys have leave, and when you were on leave, what did you do for fun, or did you get to go anywhere interesting?
The unit I was in Vietnam chose to let their officers have leave, R&R, after 11 months in country. I never got to 11 months in country. So I don't know. Your choice was go to Bangkok, see an incredible culture that's very different from ours. Go to Australia, see a English-speaking culture that's very different from ours. Go to Hong Kong, get a suit made that's going to be too small for you because when you get home you're going to put on weight. So I don't know where I was going to go. With an older audience, I would say what that did was, in that battalion, after you went on R&R, you were given light duty, and you were never sent back to the field. And then you went home. So that was the mindset about the command decision about not giving R&R midway in between. That was a command decision, and it was for the good of the battalion. Not immediately obvious. I think people are getting antsy, just a little. Are there some more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I asked him the same question. What was the funniest thing that you have written down?
Funniest thing. The funniest thing that happened to me in the Army was when you pull into a firing site and the XO, the officer in charge, has to point the direction that he wants the artillery tubes to point. The first time that I pulled the firing battery into a firing point and wanted them to align on the direction, I went like this. And the chief sergeant said, "Sir, which way do you want the tubes to point? This way or this way?" He needed to know from me which way, and I didn't give it to him. I just gave him an azimuth, a direction. I didn't point him in the right direction. It was a learning experience for me, but I was also the subject of laughter that evening in the BOQ, where all the officers were sleeping in the same room, dorm style. Everybody in the battalion learned that you point this way, this way, this way. There's nothing, but don't do it this way. And that was the butt of the joke for a night. Yes, sir.
My name is Marquette, and what is your favorite weapon when you were in a war?
What was my favorite weapon? My favorite weapon was one that I didn't have. There was an artillery piece in those days, was an 8-inch howitzer. It's big, it's mean. And when it hits somebody, it really kicks your butt. But it's very accurate for a weapon that big. And that was the weapon I needed most the day of the action. I would have loved to have been on the wrong end of that weapon, because it would have missed me by, if I'd asked it to miss me by 50 meters, it would have missed me by 50 meters. If I'd asked it to miss me by 10 meters, it would have missed me by 10 meters. That weapon is that good. And that's what I needed, and I didn't have it. It's not the answer you were expecting, I'll bet.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I want to give Brian a round of applause.
Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.